Hello, everyone, and welcome to TheFutureEconomy.ca's live panel and Q&A on the future of augmented reality and 3D in commerce, which is hosted in partnership with Threekit Technologies. My name is Florent Thévenin. I'll be your host for today, and we have a great panel that I'll introduce in just a few moments. Today, we're going to be talking about augmented reality, 3D solutions, the promise it offers for digital marketers, brand awareness, and overall the online shopping experience, and also how Canadian brands can leverage that technology or those technologies to really beat the competition, basically. And of course, we all want this on this call, I'm pretty sure, especially as we aim to recover from COVID-19. Of course, before the pandemic, we were already seeing a surge in e-commerce. The sector was booming, adoption was at an all-time high. But today, Canadians are shopping online more than ever before. And so again, very important for companies to adopt the technology, to learn how to use it, and really to use it to grow and use it to sell and compete internationally. So we're going to start our panel in just a few seconds. It'll last about 40 minutes, and it will be followed with a Q&A. So stay tuned. If you have questions, put them in the chat. And if you can, we would appreciate if you told us your name, your organization, and if that question is specifically geared at someone in particular, to mention that as well. And finally, we will finish this conversation with calls to action from each of our panelists. So I encourage you to stay till the end so you don't miss those insightful calls to action. So today's experts are Ben Houston, who is the CTO and founder of Threekit Technologies. Hello, Ben.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And next up is Shlomo Bibas, Senior Vice President and Global Chief Information Officer at Celestica. Hi, Shlomo.
Hi, Flo. Thank you very much for having me.
Very welcome. And unfortunately, Alison was unable to join today due to a personal emergency. We wish her well. But in the meantime, Daniel Gange has accepted to fill in. He is Director of E-commerce at Palliser Furniture as well as ecommerce. So it'll be interesting to hear his perspective. Hello, Dan.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Very, very welcome. So thank you all for joining us from all over Canada and the rest of the world. We've seen a lot of people from the US, but also Europe and other parts of the world. Always nice to see. And we're going to get right into it. So I would like to start with a question for Ben around sort of consumer trends, sort of the macro picture you're seeing, and how that is impacting e-commerce today and going forward.
We see a number of new emerging trends. I think the first is how comfortable people have become buying online and how you have to be able to have a great experience online that equals or exceeds your in-person shopping experience. The second trend we're seeing is a rise in digital goods. People are, especially younger consumers, are spending lots of money buying virtual product representations in their favorite video games. I think the last trend we're seeing is the emergence of tools that aid people buying wearable items using augmented reality, such as clothing, rings, glasses. Those are the three main trends that we've been seeing recently.
And as an expert and a solutions provider, could you speak a little bit as well to the gap between consumer expectations and what they're really finding online today?
Yeah, so consumers, especially the younger generation, are used to TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and they're used to like trying on, or with these face filters, they can just try on products. Snap just added the ability to try on clothes. When they go to a website and they just see pictures, it really is missing their expectations. It's not shopping the way they want. So it would be great if you can go to a website for clothing and just try on that right in your browser on whatever website you're at. Or same with furniture, you can just put that right in your room. So I do think this new generation expects AR because they're trained on it. That's all they do.
Yeah, and I'm probably not in that generation that you're talking about, maybe just outside of it, but I know for a fact, and perhaps the other gentleman on the call could confirm, for me, if I land on a website and I'm looking to buy, let's say, a pair of Nikes, and the website does not offer some form of, visualization that gives me more insights into the product, I'm very likely to just switch to the next website. I don't know, Dan, how do you feel about that?
I agree with you on that. The biggest challenge that we're seeing in the online to offline experience, particularly for our business in Q3 and Palliser, who have highly configurable products, really comes down to people being fearful that they're getting the choice wrong. So it's fear, uncertainty, doubt, FUD. You might have heard of the term. Being thrown around, maybe around cryptocurrency or something like that. But FUD is really the killer for those purchases and that checkout process. And the more we can do to remove that FUD, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt from the process, and create confidence in the purchase process, the more likely people are going to be to complete that purchase. And I think, Flo, to your point, if you can't interact with the product, if you can't move it around, if you can't understand its scale and exactly what you're going to get and get a great sense of the product in your mind's eye, you're much less likely to make that purchase.
And Shlomo, I know Celestica does not sell physical products online, but I know that you're a keen and perhaps opinionated, as you said, fan of innovation. So what is your sense of this conversation we're having right now? Perhaps the difference between where we are today, what people expect, and what we can really offer them now and in the future.
Yeah, and I agree with the other panelists as well. The early adopters of online shopping, they know what they want to buy, they know where to find it, they go and get it. But as more and more people have migrated to online shopping and forced by the current pandemic, we see that gap between in-person shopping to online shopping to growing. So my hope is that new technology like augmented reality will help close some of those gaps. So product visualization clearly is one of those. So when we go online, we now lose our ability to touch and feel the products that we're buying. So the more experiential that the experience of shopping becomes online, the better. The second one is the natural experience of going shopping, right? So now you're looking at pictures, and even if the pictures are 3D, you still don't feel like you're in a store. And many of our shopping patterns, for example, going back to school type of shopping, or even just shopping for groceries, is shopping that you do by browsing the items as you're walking down the aisles. So to me, that's a tremendous gap as well that I'm hoping that new technology will help close. As we all know, the longer someone spends in a store, the more that person tends to spend in that store, right? So it's how do we ensure that that consumers get all the information that they want about the product, but also their experience in the store.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I feel like it's a good time to turn to Ben and maybe ask him to explain what is actually AR or augmented reality and 3D technology, and what benefits does it really offer retailers and brands. Ben?
Okay. Yeah. So 3D technology is basically taking the technology from Hollywood movie industry and then applying it to the e-commerce space. You basically have to create a digital representation of the shape of your product and its features. And its materials, and then you can then use that representation to create either virtual imagery, which we call virtual photographer. You can then use that to create interactive 3D on your website, such as interactive configurators. And you can use that same representation for augmented reality. So that you sort of create a virtual representation of your product's visuals, and then it's reusable in all these different contexts. The benefits to this is that you can now create photographs or other forms of basically 3D representations of every product you have in every possible configuration to deal with what Daniel was talking about. The doubt a customer might have as to whether the product they're looking at is the one they want to get. When you're on a website and you only have like one picture of a couch, and then you have a little swatch on the side, and you have to imagine what color the couch is truly from that swatch, and it's a $2,000 purchase, that's a big jump for the customer to do. And having that virtual photography built from your 3D representation or an AR model gets rid of that, and you no longer have to imagine it because it's there in front of you.
about the difference, the adoption of some of these technologies. I think it was at Palliser or maybe at EQ3 had made over a very short period of time. Can you speak a little bit about that, Daniel?
The point that's being made there, we have with a specific example, we had a new product called the Joan. It's a great sofa that was launched, and it's a little bit lower of a price point, and it's been doing extremely well in store. So we're thrilled with this launch, we're thrilled with the product, but online it hasn't been doing nearly well. And so when I look at my top products online versus my top products in store, not seeing them line up, and usually they're fairly close. And what we realized was that the Joan hadn't had its visualization completed. We were waiting for some assets to come through, and so it only had exactly what was being described, that single image of a product with an individual swatch, and you've got to kind of take a magnifying glass to the screen. Not a great solution. Well, when we applied the visualization to that product, we saw in one weekend as many sales as we had since the product had been launched. So that put the Joan back into kind of the top product for us, and it was very similar, if not exceeding the retail experience. So just an example of that point exactly in practice.
No, and this is obviously very measurable. We're talking about sales here. That's going to be important for any company, and especially for, I guess, a company selling a product online. That's the ultimate metric. So, Shlomo, I'd love to have your perspective again, and also perhaps a little bit on the manufacturing and design side of things. What promise do you see augmented and reality and 3D offering in that area, as well as the overall online shopping experience?
Yeah. So on the vein of online shopping experience, and I would say augmented reality has a role to play both on the online as well as back on in-person bricks and mortar type of shopping as well. Our shoppers are becoming very savvy now, shopping online. They can do very quickly price comparisons, get consumer reports, all that information available to them online. They lose that when they go back to the stores, or it's not as readily available. They would have to go on their mobile device and look for that information. So hopefully augmented reality will also enhance the in-person brick and mortar type of shopping experience by bringing intelligence to help consumers make the right decisions on the spot. And then at home, as I said before, it's all about creating more of a shopping experience and providing better product visualization for the folks that continue to buy online. Celestica, as any other large corporation, we have a very large procurement department. So we also buy chairs and we buy desks. So we would benefit from that. I think B2B use of augmented reality for shopping will also be very beneficial. And I can tell you, inside of our manufacturing plants, we're already testing technology to help us train our technicians, do technology transfers between plants, allow technicians to follow SOPs, our standard operating procedures, when they manufacture product while they're manufacturing. So I think it is a technology that will absolutely revolutionize the world.
Really, really interesting. And Ben, if we look at the marketing and advertising side of things, I can imagine that augmented reality and 3D also offer benefits in that area.
Yeah, there's a few obvious ones where now you can have ads that are 3D interactive configurators. You can actually look at glasses and then try them on directly from the ad, or like a sofa from EQ3, which you can change the parameters. Using this type of technology, though, you can actually serve up customized ads as well. So if I know that you like blue sofas, I can actually create images of blue sofas. And if I know you like a bohemian style of the rest of the house, I can actually composite or create those images on the fly just for you. And if it's appealing to your sensibilities, you're more likely to click on that ad because that image is personalized exactly for you. So there's a lot of opportunities in the ad space, and we're seeing a lot of demand.
I don't know how you knew that I like the bohemian pattern. I thought that's obviously not bohemian, but I do. I do like it, so that's good. You've convinced me at least. Dan, so what about the interaction and sort of the engagement between consumers and brands? Do you see what Ben is essentially saying about the level of, I guess, engagement you can have with a product if you see it in 3D, for example? Do you see that really enhancing your interaction with your consumer base?
We do. We really, really do. The numbers that we've seen when we implement AR, when we implement this 3D visualization, are pretty shocking in a good way. The example from a conversion rate perspective, when we have our AR enablement on site is significant. We're talking a 4x compared to users who don't use that AR. The ability to expose those kinds of experiences and pieces of content to people has, in a very direct way, led to significant revenue gains. That when you're doing the math initially, you might say it looks optimistic. Is just adding AR going to 4x your conversion rate? That seems unlikely, but that's what you start seeing pretty quickly. As you build out your data models and data structures on the analytics side, being able to track those interactions, you see people who are engaging in the AR not only have a data point of a higher conversion rate, but you often see it in post-consumer feedback. So we have a post-purchase survey where we frequently see big shout-outs to the AR functionality, saying, thanks so much for the AR, specifically, that's why I bought it. Maybe that exact quote is a little bit too on the nose, and I'm exaggerating, but AR is frequently referenced as a specific point of purchase. So for a brand, being able to bring the content into somebody's house to make it feel real, to make you feel like it is yours, that is really very powerful technology, and I couldn't see us going back to not using that.
No, of course. On the contrary, I think it's probably just the beginning. I mean, we say this about a lot of things, but that technology is, of course, only going to improve. I'm wondering, as we're obviously all consumers beyond our professional roles, are there aspects or features of augmented reality, visualizations, 3D, that consumers favor, that consumers seem to really like most or even expect vis-a-vis others? Maybe Dan?
I wouldn't say that the expectation of AR is there yet. What I would say is that, similar to my point on the Jones sofa, where we saw this significant uplift in sales after the visualizations were on site, people do expect to be able to complete that visualization process now. It's no longer acceptable, where it had been in the past to some extent, but it's really no longer acceptable to our consumers to not be able to visualize on site, on the fly, to be able to get a better sense of that product. And quite frankly, it's starting to become part of the in-store experience as well. So people are conducting those visualizations in-store on devices while they're sitting on the physical product itself. So you're sitting on a sofa, it's not quite the right fabric. Maybe you've got a swatch in that fabric in your hand, but you still don't know what it's really going to look like, and that AR or 3D modeling makes a really big difference.
Right. Perhaps I can ask Shlomo, how can demonstrating innovation through the use of AR and 3D lead to more consumer interest and improve a brand's awareness, in your view?
Yeah. So for sure, innovation drives higher levels of engagement with your customer base, creates the shopping experience a much better shopping experience, and it also adds that cool factor, right? And so people are attracted, to that cool factor. But I want to go back to Dan's point, with the Jonas sofa. That's a real live example of how making something cool all of a sudden just gained the sales that they were expecting, because they were seeing that in real life but not online, right? So what happens is, once you do that, you set the bar at that level. So it goes from being like, hey guys, let's go in here, it's really cool, to now this is what I expect, and then from here we build up. So I agree again with Dan, there's no way back after getting to that level. And innovation will continue to drive this, right? I was a big fan of CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in my early years of my career, and it was all about going to see what's new and innovative, right? And so now we're actually using technology in very cool ways to drive business activities, and I think this will stick moving forward.
Ben, perhaps you could share a little bit of your experience with your clients and what they are telling you. You have quite a few, I think, maybe 100 or even more, you mentioned.
Yes.
What are they telling you in terms of that coolness factor that they maybe have been feedbacked on, or other aspects of their experience that would be useful to our audience to hear about?
I think, let's see, some of our customers sell paintings, pictures that go on the wall. Having those visualized in AR is phenomenal because they already know how big it is. That's absolutely key. And once they can view it in AR, their sales lift is, I believe it's like 30% or upwards of that. We've seen this visualization, besides just removing the fear and doubt for like relatively simple purchases, such as like a configurable sofa, we found that in like the B2B space, having the visualization adds significant uplift to complex purchases when there's like 10 or 12 or even like 20 options to configure. Having that visualization confirms that the configuration you're making is correct. And sometimes it's really hard to keep that sort of in your head that you're doing the right thing without a detailed visualization being modified as you go. So in some ways, there's just as much value for this AR and 3D visualization in the B2B space as there is in the consumer space. But consumers these days are the ones seeing the rise of it. It has not been adopted as much in the B2B space. One of the last things that's really interesting, Daniel's talked about getting over the fear, uncertainty of doubt in a customer making a purchase using AR. But there's actually this upcoming technology where we can do multiple items in AR at the same time. And not only does it reduce FUD, but it increases the total value of the potential checkout. And so now it's not even just, it's pretty amazing where this is heading. And I do think 5-6 years ago, I was like, maybe we can start to match the in-store experience. I think that AR, where it's going the next couple of years, it's going to greatly exceed the in-store experience.
I'd love to have Danny's reaction since you're shout-outing him or mentioning him, Daniel.
Yeah, so totally on the same page. The different metrics that we have in e-commerce, site traffic, average order value, right, our AOV, and our conversion rate. Those are really the three primary drivers. And if we've got the way to move a different lever with the same technology, through, for example, creating a bundled AR experience, all of a sudden you've completely changed the game again. You've completely changed the metrics of the business in a way that's one of the core metrics. What to me about this kind of talks about, and I see in a lot of our marketing activities, is that AR and 3D visualization doesn't just solve a problem, right? We're not solving the problem of, for example, the 3D configurator on our site. That's a problem, and it is solved. But we're solving a class of problems. So we're solving a class of problems which are content. And the content problem is the biggest problem, or one of the biggest problems in the business of configurable products, right? You can't build and photograph all potential combinations and configurations. You have to do it digitally. So if you're able to configure and model all of those products in a 3D asset, you can then move those assets into other applications, into other use cases. And so one of the things that EQ3 has found is that while we've made an investment specifically on increasing online conversions and increasing revenue, so that was the hurdle that we had to get over, right? Our internal hurdle rate when we were doing all of these calculations involved that online conversion and that one use case. But now what we're finding, because we have this extensive product catalog, this virtual catalog of assets, we can do all sorts of things. So whether we're partnering with other companies, so a room planner for our in-store staff, for example, that's using the same assets. And all I need to do on my end is ask two companies to talk to each other. And then I've got my entire digital catalog in another platform at almost no work at all. So that's the power as an example. And each example of that and each use case that we're solving couldn't have been thought of. There's no list of the potential use cases from 5 years ago or even 6 months ago. as I'm sure that both, everybody on this call would appreciate, these use cases come up very quickly. There's a new application, a new opportunity, and if you don't have those digital assets, you can't take advantage of it.
I just want to send a quick message to our audience who's watching us through this stream and on various social media platforms. We've received some questions. Please continue to send them. We will try to ask as many as we can at the end of this conversation. Shlomo, excuse me, but I'm going to go back to Ben just for a moment, and I'll be back to you in a second. Ben, I'd love to know what trends you are seeing right now in AR and 3D and what that is telling you about the future use of these technologies, and if you can speak specifically to Canada, that would be great.
Okay. Let's see. Going on Daniel's point, I guess we're really in agreement here. We didn't get like people opposing views, but he said there's so many uses. Once you can sort of digitize your products in this fashion, make these visual assets, there's so much power. We're finding it also in the B2B space. Once you've digitized a product, you can then train neural networks to recognize all those pieces. So now you can find replacement parts, because it's really quite simple. And then they can see a visual of the replacement part. They can use their phone and identify it just by taking a picture. And then you can do maintenance, as Shlomo was saying earlier. So there's a lot of power here. I do find that most of our clients are US based. They're usually US based, very large multinationals. They're moving on this. And I think there's this big risk that many Canadian companies are not moving that fast, and people are seeing major lifts in just the chance of checking out, and then order value, and then maybe reduce costs of maintenance on those products. So there's an opportunity here to move on this, to get a lot of benefits, as Daniel was saying he's getting in his company. So
of course, any of those companies can contact Threekit.com at any time. Quick shameless plug, but obviously you're the provider here, so useful to mention that. Shlomo, you mentioned again in our pre-call that you had opinions, so I'd love to hear maybe a bit of a contrarian opinion if you have one, or idea that you have.
Ben is fishing for some contrarian opinions. I guess I would say, in a sense, maybe agree, but at the same time disagree. I think, Ben, what you're noticing that these type of technologies are being adopted first by in the business to consumer space. I think that's true. I think that's a trend that we'll see with all the innovation that is coming out now with new technologies. It first gets adopted in the consumer side, and then the enterprise lags behind. It used to be that back in the day, faxes only existed in businesses, and then eventually consumers were able to adopt it. But I think that trend has been reversed, and I do believe that there's a place for this kind of technology inside of the enterprise. So you should expect to see that. So the truth is, I think that we're at the tip of the iceberg here, and as the technology evolves and consumer groups mature and the enterprise matures, we'll see more and more of this happening. My view, I think, regarding your question, Flo, about what should we be doing here in Canada specifically, I think I encourage Canadian brands and Canadian companies to think as if they were a technology company. I think every company in every sector today really is a technology company. So if you have products that you sell to consumers and you're not thinking of technology as an enabler, you're gonna miss this wave. So wake up your IT departments. They need to be more than just a production support type of an organization. Ensure that your point of sale is working. Those are the guys that need to be driving innovation for you, and ensure that you adopt these kind of technologies to drive commercial activities. So.
And so at Celestica, could you tell us a little bit about how you use augmented reality and 3D, or if you're considering new uses in the future?
We are. So we were introduced to the technology by some of our customers. So if you can imagine, some of the major players in the space are customers of Celestica. We're in the business of making electronics. So we make heads-up devices, holographic displays, smart glasses, so our customers are asking us to use their own technology to support their manufacturing lines. So we're introducing some of that technology and testing it and see how we adopt it and roll it out globally. I see us adopting more and more of this type of technology, as I said before, in areas where we need to train technicians, or we need to do tech transfers between plants, or even for folks in the manufacturing line to follow standard operating procedures while they're working. I think this kind of technology will be embedded in the way that we work. But also, as I said before, the enterprise is a major consumer as well. If you think about all major companies have large procurement teams, and they will have to buy the same kind of things that consumers buy. So I think this kind of technology will be adopted by procurement organizations as well, as we buy both direct material and indirect materials.
And Daniel, as a representative of two organizations that have already adopted some of the technologies we're talking about today, what do you see as some of the hurdles, and what needs to be done so that we can see more widespread adoption in Canada as elsewhere? So
that's a really great question, because anytime there's a technology project, I'd say the undefined requirements are always, that's the classic killer. We forgot to add this specific requirement, and we built it in, we built it in the wrong language, whatever, right? Like there's all of these unstated assumptions that often go into it. But from, first off, it's hurdles. The biggest one is that I see in business is the empowerment of technologists, of bringing technologists to the forefront and participating at the executive level in terms of setting policy and strategy and enabling strategy. So, just so much of what we're doing right now, and what I had said previously about the solving of a class of problems, right? The content problem that's been solved. Well, even the people in the space might not be appreciating what those opportunities or potential use cases are in the near future, let alone people outside of the space. So if I sit down with some business leaders who have been in the furniture business for a long time, they're probably not technologists. And so it's going to be very hard to appreciate the opportunities that exist with enabling technology and what those challenges are. So, I would push anybody in an industry that has not yet really embraced that technology to start looking for technologists to participate at the head of the table and understand what you're getting into, because technology projects are very hard, they're very expensive, and they're risky. And you need to have people involved that are going to be able to help guide the way. And you need to empower them and quite frankly, take those risks, because they're worth it.
Yeah, the main point here for me is indeed that those technologists are those that will be able to appreciate the value of technology adoption better than anybody else within an organization. Ben, I see you sort of nodding. Any additional thoughts on what we can do to reduce hurdles and to have more widespread adoption, especially here in Canada, because we want Canada to compete,
Yeah, I think this type of technology can have a huge impact. Like, I remember over the last couple of years, we've had a number of great clothing companies in Canada. I think it's Reitman's, Clio, many women's clothing companies have actually gone bankrupt in the last 5 years. And partly because they were killed by their retail stores had declining traffic and lots of online sales, but their online sales had a return rate of like 40%. Absolutely brutal. This type of technology, you can actually take clothing, we can actually simulate clothing and put on different body types. And so then you can actually see how that clothing will look on you and that size, such that you're more likely to buy the right size. So I think that this can actually rejuvenate some of the sectors that have been really struggling. I think that, as Shlomo was saying, companies have to really embrace this type of technology. It's just like getting an e-commerce store. You needed that before, but this is like the next level. You need this. It's almost like immersive e-commerce in a way. It's the next trend, and there's going to be new winners here. And the ones that aren't adopting it can be very challenging to compete against those. Just like Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok have blown up because they offer immersive experiences first. Yeah. Seamless immersive experiences.
Shlomo, do you want to add anything? I see you nodding as well.
Yeah, I do want to add, and maybe Ben can respond to this as well, because I know that this is something he's passionate and he's been working on already. But the other thing that I think it's missing in this space is some sort of standards, right? As we continue to adopt more and more of this technology, it's important that the companies become part of a common ecosystem, and where standards are driving compatibility, so we can continue to build on these building blocks. So Ben, I know obviously you're probably knee deep on this. Maybe you can comment a little bit on what's happening in the space.
Yeah, there is a number of standards. I think the most important one is the Gltf Standard. That's its name. And it's basically a high fidelity 3D interchange format. And so you can use this to interchange clothing, furniture, manufactured goods like computer motherboards. Anything in that space can be transferred in this format. So that's what I'd recommend. And it's it's sort of an open format. So we're on the board and we're helping push that forward. It's phenomenal. It's relatively new though. I'd say it's sort of only solidified in the last 2 years.
Dan, on this?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to create standards is so important, because as a direct-to-consumer organization, we are not able to control what people are going to be bringing to the site, for example. We can't say, oh, this is only an Apple or an Android application. That's not going to go well. The more standardized the formats and the file types, the more value end users are going to have out of it. And me as the person who's putting money into visualizing, the more value I can drive out of that, because I can use it in different applications. And to my previous point about solving a class of problems, if I can't apply the asset to that class of problem, there's no value there. It's just a headache. Making sure we can apply it at all places is so key.
Right.
I hate to cut the conversation short, but we have quite a few questions, and of course also our calls to action. So who wants to start with a sort of 1.5 minute directed, clear call to action to someone or a community? Of course, the goal being to improve adoption, to improve competitiveness, to improve Canada as well, if possible. Who wants to go first? Shall I go first? I'm going to pick someone then. I'm going to pick Dan.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks. So I would say my call to action is to business leaders, what I said previously about ensuring that technologists are empowered, bringing people to the forefront of the organization to craft the vision and strategy to ensure that the organization itself is able to respond to and predict future opportunities. The value that technology provides is only available when you understand how the technology works, or at least as an organization. And if the organization has challenges with basic technology operability in the first place, it's going to be very difficult to set a course through a digital frontier. So my call to action, get those technologists in the organization, make sure they've got great track records, make sure they've got solid backing from a support perspective, and make sure that they get in front of the problems and help you guide the decision making.
If there are any technologists on the call, they'll be very happy to have been mentioned twice on this call. Maybe someone will find a job thanks to you. So Dan, really, that's very nice of you. Ben, do you want to go next?
I'm pretty self-interested, but yeah, I'm like, if you're selling goods online or would like to be selling them online, and you want to boost your sales and reduce your returns and increase order value, give us a shout at Threekit.com. We'd love to help you. We're helping a lot of different companies in many different industries, and we bring a lot of deep subject matter expertise, because we've been doing online 3D configurators in this fashion since 2015 now.
Well, and that's of course a long time ago in that sort of highly innovative, disruptive space, right?
When I was hiring people to work on this, it took me forever to try and explain the idea to them. Like they just didn't get it, and now like it's concrete. It's easy to understand
because everyone is using it. Yeah. Of course. Shlomo.
So for me, just maybe two points here. One is to Ben and other companies like Threekit. I think you need to start thinking more than just the space that you're playing in, but really what the universe looks like, and ensure that you're driving that level of standardization and building an ecosystem with partners that we can all benefit from. Don't leave it to companies to make those decisions for you. I think you need to take an active stand on that. And the other one is specifically to Canadian companies. I've lived this myself throughout my career. I think it is important that you get those technology departments from the back office and put them in the front office. If you're driving business strategy, if you're having commercial conversations and account planning conversations, and you don't have your technologist at the table, you're missing an opportunity. You need to think of your IT department as an enabler of that strategy, and the group that will drive innovation. So it's time to turn the tables around and put the IT department at the front office.
And Ben, you were obviously called out. Do you want to react in 30 seconds?
I think standards are important. We have partnered with a lot of different companies, including like Chaos Group, which does high quality visuals, Chronos Group, which does the Gltf standards. We've also partnered with Salesforce, Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce on e-commerce integrations. And we're also partnering with various types of like Infor and other types of ERP systems.
ERPs.
So we're trying to really be a really good ecosystem player. So wherever you have your data and wherever you're selling, we can meet those needs and work with everybody.
Great. Very interesting. I'm going to switch us now towards our questions. We have quite a few, and the first two are for you, Ben. So the first one is, how and when will AR experience exceed an in-store experience?
I think I would say it all depends. It's subjective. It depends on how good your stores are and like how much you've invested there. But even if you've invested a lot in a store, it might not be near all your potential customers, right? So maybe you have a store in one city, but if you could sell in other cities, that'd be very effective. So I think a year and a half, there's sort of like a crossover point. There's some fundamental technology called WebXR that is coming that enables much richer AR experiences on the browser and gets rid of this need to pick between USDZ and GLTF. These are some technical file formats. It causes a lot of issues, and those also sometimes have lower fidelity. Once we have this WebXR, very, very powerful augmented reality scenarios will be possible. And Apple's committed to supporting it. It's already supported on Android, and that's about 1.5 years away.
I'll be honest, I didn't expect such a straightforward answer, and especially just 1.5 years. That's just an incredible answer.
It's subjective, though, because maybe your stores are amazing and your salespeople are amazing. But I think it's totally feasible that you could be doing a multi-item configuration in your room, a sofa, a love seat, and then a coffee table, and maybe even a carpet, and then a virtual salesperson who's maybe located in Winnipeg joins that and sees what you've done and goes, you know what, I think that actually this other carpet would work better, or that chair, you could probably get a bigger chair there. That would really work. And so then they're helping you in your home. And then almost all the aspects of the store that are beneficial are now right there with you. And it doesn't matter if there's a store at all. So yeah, I think
very cool.
Very
cool. Another question that came for you was, when will AR and 3D be necessary in commerce when the pandemic is over and people return in stores?
Who wants to take this?
That was for you.
Oh, I can do it. I think that it reduces your costs and increases your sales. So why not? I can shop while I'm watching TV. If I'm watching a boring show, I can just start shopping for stuff. Then I can see if it's going to fit in my room. I think having these visuals reduces the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and I can visit so many stores much quicker than driving around. And so I think that the pandemic has accelerated the future, and Shopify's been clear about this. It's accelerated the future probably 5 years faster in the e-commerce space than we would have seen otherwise. But there's going to be a slight correction probably for a couple months, and then it's going to continue right on that trend.
Okay. Moving to Daniel, the next question is, can you talk a bit more about that example you mentioned about how AR saw a sort of 4x boost to your numbers, and what was the specific metric that you saw grow fourfold or otherwise?
That was conversion rates. So it wasn't clicks. It wasn't anything that was leading. It was sales.
So that means out of the people that visited the platform, how many turned into a sale? Is that what it is?
So yeah. So the number, when you look at, and I'll get into it a little bit more clearly then. So what we saw was when consumers in a mobile category engage in a AR experience, right? Because you can't engage with it in a desktop. Those consumers would have a conversion rate, and when I say conversion rate, I mean like completing a sale, and that's only talking about an online transaction. Something to note is that we have retail and online transactions, so there's going to be a pretty significant loss in terms of interactions. Now, some of this was during COVID, so that certainly helped, but what we see is that people who are engaging with that AR have a conversion rate, when you run the numbers, of approximately 4 times the average of visitors to the site.
Yeah, that's very substantial, of course. And then a question for the panel. So anyone feel free to jump in. When does the panel see 3D assets becoming ubiquitous? When will it really scale, basically? Anyone?
We already do. I think we have over 1 million assets under management. We have one customer who has, last time we counted, was 2 trillion SKUs. So we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing, there's like the classic early adopters, like champions, early adopters, early majority. I feel that we're transitioning from early adopters to early majority right now. And so we're seeing massive, massive growth. We released publicly that we've grown 3 times each of the last 3 years.
Okay.
From my perspective on that, I can't say about adoption entirely, but what I can say about our product catalog and the reason why 3D visualization was so key for us as an organization was exactly to this point on trillions of configurations and combinations. We have one product, as an example, that you could configure the front, the back, the zipper, the cover of the zipper, the ottoman, the front of the ottoman, the back of the ottoman, the legs of the ottoman. So that's what, 8 different options, and the minimum number of choices was 4. Most of them have 200 to 300 choices. So all of a sudden you have in the trillions of combinations, and we can visualize every single one of those if you want. What's exciting is that you can create a product that we've never manufactured, and you can purchase a product that we've never manufactured because there's so many options out there. And so from an assets that exist perspective, that's exactly what the problem that we were facing and how we solved that class of problem.
One thing that Daniel brought up is that you can see these products that don't exist. And that's actually truly fundamental. If Canadian businesses can understand that, what you can do is, using this technology, you can actually create products digitally that don't exist, and then start selling those and just say it's got 2 weeks for delivery or 3 weeks for delivery, and then you build them. Daniel could create a bunch of products and just as tests. Hey, we hired a designer and he made these new ideas for furniture. Just throw them on your website. They could be infinitely configurable. And so that reduces your time to market. Your time to market is idea, and then make this virtual representation, and then say it changes everything. Now you can move fast. There's a new trend, you can hit it in 4 or 5 days if you really wanted to. Whereas before, traditionally, you design, send to manufacturing, get them back, do a photo shoot. You're looking at, if you're optimized, a month or 2 maybe. So this allows people to be super nimble.
Yeah. Next question is, again, open to the whole panel. Regarding training neural networks, could that function also reveal similar products?
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. So in that case, I was talking about sort of image recognition neural networks. And so that would, you train it on your products, and then, it could do both similarity or exact matches. Someone else asked about neural networks. They talked about NeRFs, which is another way of representing objects as neural networks instead of explicit 3D models. They're better for one-offs because they don't allow for configurability. But I expect in the future NeRFs may be able to support configurability.
I like this next question. It says, do you see younger Canadians jumping into AR at all? Is there a fun and games crowd for AR in Canada?
Maybe I'll jump on this one. Just I think they touch on an important point. What we're seeing, and this is permeating not only, I mean, it's starting with the with youth, but it just very quickly runs up through the consumer base and even migrates into the enterprise, and is gamification of things. You know, whether it's shopping or training, experiences now are being turned into games. And there's a lot of value to that, because we get to learn, we get to interact with others, and that just adds to the experience. So the answer to that is yes. I do see young Canadians adopting this kind of technology much sooner, much faster. As a matter of fact, we see it with our own kids, specifically around games, how they interact with strangers around the world. And then how these gaming platforms are actually adopting shopping. So just like shopping platforms will then adopt gaming as a way to attract consumers and interact with. So I do see this happening.
Yeah, there's a game called Roblox. It's been actually incredibly influential. It's basically like a metaverse. This is like a multi-user experience all in 3D, and it's I would say 8 to like 12-year-olds. It's incredibly phenomenal, and much of it is actually about buying digital goods and then arranging those digital goods. So they're buying furniture from real brands and real T-shirts. Gucci actually sold a purse in there for $1,200, and it was just a virtual representation. You didn't actually get the real purse. But all of that technology can be as the same digital assets. So once you sell it online, you could actually, I could imagine in the future, when you buy a shirt, you might actually get a digital shirt that you can use in Roblox or Fortnite at the same time. Or maybe you just buy that one for $5, the real one's $20, and you get both for $22. Like, that's going to happen. And I think that Palliser should be selling in Roblox, because then kids will be like, oh yeah, that's that iconic Palliser sofa. Or like, because then they get familiar with it, right? And then they view that maybe like one of the premium ones. So then they start associating your brand with premium experiences, because you almost have to be trained on that, right? You don't know that that's a really nice couch. You have to be told that that's a really nice couch.
Yeah.
Like
Daniel, you want to react very quickly? We have about 3 minutes left. Just maybe take 30 seconds if you don't mind.
Sure, I would say that once those 3D assets exist and the ability to move them in an interoperable fashion, the cost-benefit analysis becomes pretty reasonable. I mean, the cost to get 3D assets into other applications is low, and the opportunity to experiment and learn is high. And so, exactly to your point, it's a pretty easy opportunity to start trying new things and experimenting and potentially failing, but potentially succeeding in a way that we never thought was possible.
Super interesting. I have a whole bunch of questions that I would love to ask you, but we have to respect people's times. People have joined us from, again, all around Canada and the world, so we want to be mindful of that. But guys, Ben, Shlomo, Dan, thank you very much for a great conversation. To our audience, if you enjoyed today's panel, make sure to visit TheFutureEconomy.ca. We have lots of great content, videos, interviews on Canada's future economy, like this one. While you're there, make sure to sign up for our newsletter and stay tuned for updates. Many of you are watching on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or Facebook. Make sure to follow us there as well, or subscribe in the case of YouTube, so you can get updates on our latest videos. And finally, I also want to thank Threekit Technologies, of course, and Ben, who's on the panel, for co-hosting this event. If you're not familiar with Threekit, or if you're looking to boost your own customers' online shopping experience and grow your sales, as we discussed today, check them out. www, I don't even know if it's useful to say that anymore, Threekit.com. So it's Threekit spelled out.com. This concludes today's session. Thank you again to our panelists. Thank you to all of you for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good day.